Hey y'all, today we're going to build on what we've already learned. You've already seen how to multiply binomials and factor trinomials, so we are connecting those ideas to create something called a perfect square trinomial. So what makes it a perfect square? It's when we factor a trinomial and we have the same binomial twice, like twins. So let's look at the very first example. I have x squared plus 4x plus 4, which is an example of a perfect square trinomial. So we're going to factor it like a review. I'm going to use my area model so I can find my two side lengths on the outside. I've already written my quadratic term and my constant term, and I need two numbers right here that will multiply to a times c and add up to b. So first of all, what is my a times my c value? Well, since my a value is 1 and my c value is 4, my a times c value would be 1 times 4, which will give me 4. So I want two numbers that will multiply to 4 and add to my b term, which is also 4. So I pull up my factor pair list. I find the number 4. And these are my factors of 4. 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Which set of numbers are going to add up to 4? Well, it can't be 1 and 4 because that's going to add up to 5. But 2 and 2 will add up to 4. So that means I can rewrite these two numbers as 2x plus 2x. All right, now we need to find our side lengths. What can I put on the outside of this x squared box that will multiply to x squared, an x and an x? All right. Then what can I multiply by x to give me 2x? 2. Well, what can I multiply by this x to give me 2x? 2. So I have my two factors, which are the same. They're twins. X plus 2 times x plus 2. And if we multiply them all back up, we will get this same expression. So that is an example of a perfect square trinomial. Let's try another. All right, let's look at this example. X squared plus 8x plus 16. And we want to make sure that it is a perfect square trinomial. So we're going to factor it. We have our x squared and our 16, and I need to find two numbers that will multiply to a times c and then add up to b. So what is our a times c value? My a value is 1 times my c value, which is 16, will give me an a times c of 16. And I want them to add up to my b value, which is a positive 8. So I pull out my factor pair list and I find a times c, which is 16. And I want two numbers that will add up to 8. What are those two numbers? Hopefully you said 4 and 4. Because 4 times 4 is 16 and 4 plus 4 is 8. All right, so that means I can rewrite 8x as 4x plus 4x. How can we find our two side lengths, aka our two binomials? What will go on the outside of this box that will multiply to x squared? Hopefully you said x and x. All right, what can I multiply by x that will give me 4x? Hopefully you said a positive 4. What do you think is going to go outside of this box? That's right, a positive 4. So we have our two factors, x plus 4 and x plus 4, which makes it a perfect square trinomial because they are the same. And if I multiply them back up, I will indeed get this. All right, so let's take it up a notch. I have x squared minus 2x plus blank. And the directions say what value of c would be factored as the following, which means I need to find my constant value that will create me a perfect square trinomial. I have my quadratic term and my linear term, no constant term. So how do we find it? Very simple. I take half of my b term, -2, divided by 2. That is half of it. And then I square it. And whatever that value is, I put it right here to complete that square to find that constant value. So in my calculator, I open up my parentheses and I type in -2 because that is the value for b. I divide it by 2 and I square it. And that means that the value of +1 can be written right here to complete my square. Let's try another one. All right, I have x squared minus 10x plus blank, and then I need to find the value of c that is going to give me a perfect square trinomial. How do we do that? I take my b term, which is -10, and I divide it by 2. And then I square it. So in my calculator, open up my parentheses and type in -10 divided by 2 square. Notice that my square is on the outside and not the inside. So half of my b value squared will give me a +25. And I have completed my square. All right, let's do some examples. We're going to determine the value of c, boom, boom, that creates a perfect square trinomial, and then we're going to factor it. So this is called completing the square because we need a value here that will make this a perfect square. And we do that by taking our b value and halving it and then squaring. So half of my b value squared. So let's look at the example. X squared plus 14x plus what number is going to complete the square? First, what is my b value? A +14, emphasis on the +14. And I need to take half of 14. Well, what is half of 14? 14 divided by 2, half of 14 is 7. That means I can put a 7 on these two sides. 7 plus 7 is 14. Well, what is 7 times 7? Or 7 squared, 49. So the value of c that will complete the square is a 49. Now I need to write my factored form, aka 2 parentheses, a product. That means on this side, since it says x squared, it will be x plus 7 because it's a +7. Well, how many times am I going to write x plus 7? Because I see it twice, 2 times. Which gives me my factored form, my 2 parentheses, with an a value on the outside of here as 1. Well, what about my vertex form? I say that because vertex form has this square. Well, how many times do I see the same parentheses? Twice. So my vertex form would be x plus 7 squared. Because it's 2 of them. All right. What about x squared minus 20x plus blank? What is my b value? My b value is now a negative number. It's a -20. I can still take half of -20. So -20 and half of it will be what? -10. Because -20 divided by 2 gives me -10. That means I can put a -10 on each side. Because -10 plus -10 is equal to a -20. But what is -10 times -10? So parentheses, -10, close parentheses, squared gives me a +100. So the value of c that will complete this square is 100. So, Ms. Carter, why did you put a parentheses? If I don't, and I put -10 squared, it tells me that's -100, but that is not true because a negative times a negative gives me a positive. That is why you must use your parentheses. All right, what would your factored form be? Because it's an x squared and I have two negative 10s. So you should say x minus 10 times x minus 10, giving me that factored form. But what about my vertex form? Because it's two parentheses to say the same thing. X minus 10 squared. All right, what about x squared plus 12x plus what? What should I do? Find my b value, which is a positive 12, and do what with it? Take half of it. Well, what is half of 12 or 12 divided by 2? A positive 6, which means 6 plus 6 is 12. Well, what is 6 times 6 or 6 squared? 36. So that's the value of c that would complete the square. What would my factored form be? X plus 6 times x plus 6. And what would my vertex form be because it's two of them? X plus 6 squared. All right, what about x squared minus 16x plus blank? What do I need first to find the value for c that will complete the square? Find my b value, negative 16, and do what with it? Take half of it. Negative 16 divided by 2 is a negative 8. That means this side is a negative 8 and this side is a negative 8. Because negative 8 plus negative 8 is negative 16. And negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64. Because a negative times a negative is a positive. What would my factored form be? Because I have two negative 8s on the side of my box. X minus 8 times x minus 8. And what would my vertex form be? Because I have two of the same binomials. X minus 8 squared. All right, well, what about x squared plus 7x plus this box? You probably saying, well, Miss Carter, I know I'm supposed to take half of my b value, which is a 7. But half of 7 don't give me no whole number. And you're right, it don't mean I can't take half of it, though. So what is half of 7? 3.5. That means that this side gets a 3.5 and this side gets a 3.5. Because 3.5 plus 3.5 gives me this 7. But what does 3.5 squared give me? 3.5 squared gives me a 12.25. That means the number that will complete this square is 12.25. So what would my factored form be? My two parentheses. X plus 3.5 times x plus 3.5. Well, what will my vertex form be because I have two of the same parentheses? X plus 3.5 squared. All right. X squared minus 5x plus this box. What is my b value? My b value is a negative 5. And if I take half of negative 5, I get negative 2.5. So that means negative 2.5 on this side and negative 2.5 on this side. Because negative 2.5 plus negative 2.5 gives me this negative 5. So what am I going to do to find this area? Negative 2.5, using my parentheses, squared. That means the value of c that will complete this square is 6.25. All right, what would my factored form be? Because I have two of the same things on the outside of parentheses. It will be x minus 2.5 times x minus 2.5. Well, what would my vertex form be? Because I have two of the same parentheses. X minus 2.5 squared. All right, our last two examples. X squared plus 1 over 2x plus blank. It is a fraction. So my b value is a positive 1/2. Miss Carter, how I'm supposed to take half of a half? I'm going to put it in a calculator. 1/2 divided by 2 is 0.25. But I want to keep it as a fraction now. So I'm going to toggle this fraction button. That means that this side will be 1/4 and this side will be 1/4. Because 1 divided by 4 plus 1 divided by 4 gives me, boom, 1/2. So how am I going to find the answer for this box, the C value that's going to complete the square? 1/4 squared, which is 1/16. So the value of C that will complete this square is 1/16. What would my factored form be? X plus 1/4 times x plus 1/4. Well, what would my vertex form be? Because it's two of the same parentheses. X plus 1/4 squared. All right, what about x squared plus 1/3 x plus what will complete this square? What is your B value? The B value is 1/3. And I want, just like I did in all the rest of them, I want to take half of it. So in the calculator, open parentheses, 1/3, close parentheses, divided by 2, hit my little toggle, my little fraction button, and half of 1/3 is 1/6. Because 1/6 plus 1/6 is equal to 1/3. So how am I going to find the area, aka for this box? That means I'm going to say 1/6, close parentheses, squared, hit my fraction button, and the value of C that will complete this square is 1/36. What would my factored form be? X plus 1/6 times x plus 1/6. What would my vertex form be because I have two of the same parentheses? X plus 1/6 squared. So some key takeaways for y'all. To find the value of C, aka when it's in standard form, and I need this little value right here, to find the value of C that completes the square, I'm going to take half of my B value and square it. Remembering, if you look back at all the examples that we did, this C value was always positive. If it's negative, you did something wrong. All right, save this because you're going to need it for tomorrow.